President Joe Biden finally visited the Southwest U.S. border. Bit too little too late, considering the immigration crisis his policies created started about 2 years ago, but hey, better late than never, right? Too bad the whole thing was a giant sham. Just like Biden's solutions to the problem that it turns out he couldn't even be bothered to see. It took 2 years in office before President Joe Biden finally found the Southwest U.S. border. Of course, this was after first sending Kamala Harris, who just sort of wandered around looking perpetually lost. But last week, it was Biden's turn for a pointless photo op, as the president strolled along that evil U.S. border wall and met with a few border agents to discuss the migrant crisis that his total head-in-the-sand immigration policies triggered. You know, like 2 years ago.
He should have been out here from day one to fix the problem that he created.
But the whole thing was just smoke and mirrors. Turns out local officials ramped up border apprehensions and cleared out migrant camps ahead of Biden's visit. Because the same poor, desperate refugees who we Americans must open our hearts and our homes to without saying a word or else we're all Nazis are apparently too unseemly for the likes of Biden, who needs a nice, clean, and sanitized scene for his photo backdrop.
I had Tom Homan on my radio show this week, former ICE acting director. He said his sources down there say what the president is going to witness is not really anything close to the level of dysfunction that the people in that area have now been experiencing for a long time.
Local reports exposed how the streets of El Paso were cleared of homeless illegal aliens and the sidewalks swept clean ahead of Biden's visit last week. Spaces where crowds of blanket-covered people were camped out Wednesday were coincidentally empty by Thursday morning, just in time for the president to give it a quick glance over during his 4-hour stop. Areas of town where crowds of migrants are still squatting and begging on the streets, yeah, Biden didn't visit those.
All of these locations are on the itinerary that we received from the White House. Didn't look like he was going to be headed to downtown El Paso, which is where we had seen many of the migrants who had been living on the streets of Segundo Barrio.
So let me just throw this out there, since apparently it needs to be said out loud. When you go somewhere to observe and address a crisis, you don't clear out the crisis so you don't actually have to look at it. Kind of defeats the whole purpose, don't you think? Then again, that's assuming that Joe Biden's purpose for visiting the border was to actually address the problem, which, of course, he created and he has absolutely no intention of doing anything about because there's not a single meaningful solution to it that is politically convenient for him.
I just want to clarify, why make the trip now, not 6 months ago, not a year ago?
Well, we're clearly heading to Mexico City, so it made sense to make a stop to see what border enforcement operations were like and meet those local officials who have been impacted.
In fact, the only solution that his administration has come up with is a new parole program for certain countries so that all of those people can still come here free and clear, just without having to travel through Mexico to do it. As a matter of fact, the president's latest harebrained idea is to let up to 30,000 people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela come into the United States by air every single month. That's 360,000 people a year. To offset that, the administration says they'll be expanding Trump's Title 42 program to try to stem the tide by immediately expelling border crossers from those 4 countries back to Mexico. But that doesn't solve the problem of all the people streaming in from other countries, like El Salvador and Guatemala, for example. It doesn't address the fact that Title 42's expulsion rules are being applied inconsistently between border sectors, allowing hundreds of thousands of people to come in if they just cross in the right spot. It doesn't beef up border security to stop people coming in undetected, of which there have been hundreds of thousands. It doesn't address potential terror threats coming into the U.S. because we have wide stretches of land with absolutely nothing stopping people from just moseying on in. It does, however, piss off leftists whose sole demand is a border that's open to literally anybody with no limits and no restrictions. So with no real plan to strengthen border security, because that doesn't play well at the polls, anyone who doesn't feel like waiting in Biden's special new refugee line, waiting for their paperwork to process and their case to be heard, or who doesn't have money for a plane ticket, they can still meander on up through Juarez, hop, skip, and jump over the Rio Grande, stroll in the old-fashioned way, and take their chances. Great! This is why we need a president who is more concerned with keeping America safe and holding to sustainable levels of legal immigration than one who only cares about holding neat and shiny photo ops free of the pesky homeless camps and overcrowded border facilities to whitewash the fact that his immigration policies have been steaming piles of hot garbage from the start. This border visit was a sham. These photos are fake. These solutions are wet band-aids, and this president is a joke. And that's your Reality Check, America. If you like videos like this one, head on over to mrc.org/donate to find out how you can partner with the Media Research Center to keep content like this coming. And as always, make sure you like us on Facebook and Twitter, subscribe on YouTube and Rumble, and stay sane out there.